Elma, I think, straddles more the intersection between a traditional philanthropy focus and private sector investment. We can really look at a legal transaction that's best suited to the mission, imperative, or objective that we're seeking in that particular place and in that particular construct. And so while our portfolio is still primarily made up of grants, we are able to look at all of our grants through an investment lens. So we really think of all of our transactions as investments. But I think specifically the role of philanthropy as it relates to supporting or augmenting government and the private sector is, I think the philanthropic capital can be less risk averse. It can engage in proof of concept, and I think it can help leverage or catalyze larger government systems. And so quite often what we seek to do is support the development of the human capital or the technical inputs that might not be resident within the society or in the system currently, but need to be there to maximize whatever the government spend is going to be, or if larger aid institutions are funding that area. I think philanthropy can help innovate and also take some risks that some of those institutions can't take at the early stages. While we respect the work of international NGOs and we understand that the bilateral donors and the multilateral institutions play a very important dedicated role in terms of social transformation, for Elma, we really believe that the local economies, the local communities, and the local institutions and infrastructure have to have their own enhanced capacity to really engender sustainable change and equitable change that is owned by those communities and those states, and not something that's sort of delivered from an externality. And so for us, the where the rubber meets the road, to use your phraseology, would be really focusing in on building local institutions and local civil society and enhancing the technical capabilities of government systems. So really what we call building African capacity from the grassroots smallest community-based organization all the way up to the functional capabilities of a Ministry of Health or Education, really looking at how we can help catalyze or accelerate that growth. So being a funder, by definition, I would say it's easier for us to be mindful of that important guiding principle of someone else in the local communities providing the activity, the service, the implementation. And so we're just providing the fuel or the funding or the support and perhaps the momentum to help that occur faster, better, wider, deeper. But I think that part of it is listening. The lessons we learned in terms of seeing how it really wasn't about the money with those small, because those are relatively small grants. They could be $15,000, $20,000 grants to these communities, community-based organizations. It was about they wanted to know how to have a website, how to make a video, how to do better financial planning, how to do fundraising, how to communicate and leverage and advocate what they're entitled to or their beneficiaries are entitled to with the government. And seeing that the inputs that they needed were really very different from what a large financial grant looks like. What we've realized all too often, most of the press and most of the stories and the anecdotal armchair feedback you would get from people that say, oh, you work in Africa, and what they're expecting you to say or they're expecting to hear on the other end of that conversation is the tale of woe. There are a lot of success stories. It is a young and vibrant continent with incredibly dedicated, hardworking, entrepreneurially focused innovators and future leaders who they themselves want to own and contribute to a very new economic and social reality. And so kind of communicating to other co-funders and partners what's possible. I really think it's about demonstrating that there's a role for multiple actors. For Elma specifically, we rarely seek to fund a project solely. We believe that if it's important to invest in and support, others should believe it's important to invest in and support, and we should try to crowdsource and build momentum and common cause around big themes and big initiatives. And so for us, part of that is sharing experiences, sharing lessons learned, and hoping that we can build a constituency of interest to drive some of these things.